Realtor.
Is your host.
All right, guys, we are recording finally. All right, so welcome. I'm Jenny Palm with EXP, and we have Chris and Michelle joining us today. So we're just going to start. This is going to be a fun one because I'm sure all of us have done this a few times and we have all the same questions. So I try to change it up a little bit. So we can just start with introductions. I'll start. I am an individual agent. I'm located in Houma, Louisiana, which is a very, very, very small town. We have about 100,000 people in our parish, which means about 5 towns put together is 100,000 people. I don't have an assistant. I do between 15 to 18 million a year, which is about 60 transactions. And I've been with EXP 4 years now and a realtor for 5. So Chris, if you want to go next.
Yeah, sure. I got started investing back in 2005. I wasn't even licensed. So my background's more in the investments. I flipped 4 houses in college. 2011, I got married. So we started buying some rental properties. In 2014 is really when I got licensed. In retrospect, I wish I did it much sooner. I gained a lot of respect for what agents do and the workload that comes with it. And then so between 2015 and now we've flipped 200 or so houses, and wow. Then I've discovered the gems behind the retail side, and especially in a very strong market, there's a lot of opportunity there that we've brought inside our core team and our business. So yeah, in Houston, Texas.
Awesome. Cool. Michelle, how about you?
Yep, I am Michelle Sayward. I am just outside of Detroit, Michigan, in the suburbs, and it was 20 years in March that I have been selling real estate. Been sort of stuck in the just under 190 deals a year wow. Volume for like 5 years now, and my husband and I came over to EXP in June of 2018.
Great.
After, 17 years or so in the business. And my husband left his job as an engineer to help me open a bricks and mortar location here locally.
Cool.
And now I am at the point of really scaling my revenue share group and leveraging a team that I never had before. It was me, 1 buyer's agent, and 2 transaction coordinators doing that volume. And so now, because I have this other group of people showing up in my life, I'm now leveraging my listings and sales side and creating something that I didn't really have before. So,
okay. So how big is your team now?
Well, as of this week, we went from, this year, this is how it's changed. I went from 2 transaction coordinators, 2 other agents and myself, to now, so 5, to, I have to think, 3 transaction coordinators, Brian, Kelly, Stacy, Amy, myself, to 8, Becca.
Wow.
8 people this year. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we added 3 more people, and we are moving one of my transaction coordinators over into a role of helping with operations. So,
wow. Okay.
So we're shifting.
So you have the whole setup.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
So my next question, which is going to be a little bit different for Chris, because he said that he started flipping houses in college, but what did everyone do before making the transition into real estate? For me, I was in sales a very long time, about 20 years. I started as a telemarketer for MCI, getting people to switch from AT&T, and then I worked at It's Just Lunch as a dating sales director forever. Yeah, which was the best sales training ever. Worked at Gateway Computers, and then eventually sold franchises. So I would sell people McDonald's, those types of things. And then 5 years ago, I wanted more control over my schedule. So I decided I wanted to be a realtor. So, I think we got Brian with us. Hey, Brian. All right, we're going to keep going. So Chris, I know you started flipping in college, which I'm totally jealous of. But did you immediately do that right after college, or did you have a different career and then kind of move this into your full-time gig?
Yeah, I mean, I like to say this with humility. So what gets in the way of a great life is a good life. So I graduated with very little debt, like almost nothing. And I got a high paying inside sales job selling cruises. And
Uh-huh.
so I had a great life, like making 80 grand a year right out of college. Like I might as well be a millionaire because I just had no expenses. So that being said, I actually didn't pursue real estate much until getting married when I'm starting to think about family and all that. So, but yeah, sales has always been my background, and I had some small business direct sales stuff on the side here and there.
Awesome. Cool. And Brian, now that you're with us, are you ready to go? Ready for me to
Yes.
start drilling you?
I pride myself in being pretty tech enabled, and that's why we do pretty well. And I could not, for some reason, the Zoom link was grayed out. So I saw it there. It just wasn't a hyperlink. So I had to figure out how to turn it into a hyper. Anyway, I'm here.
Yeah. So do you want to give a little introduction about yourself? We're just talking about our production, what our teams look like, if you have one, and then also what you did before real estate.
Absolutely. Okay, so my name is Brian Auer. I'm only half of the Auer team. My wife and I run the team together. Actually, there's 8 of us on the team. So as far as leadership roles go, I'm half. I like walks on the beach, puppies. No, I before I got into real estate, I was in sales, and I love sales. I've always been, I love like the whole problem solving thing and working with people. I'm a very people person, so I enjoy, interacting with our clients, and it became less and less satisfying when I realized how hard I was working to, because sales is sales, right? So you go through the same process and you're selling a certain widget or a tool or a service or something. And, the payoffs can be very different. And so I'd started meeting friends that were selling, working just as hard as I was, but they were selling homes. And so they were doing much better financially. And so it's kind of like, man, I love selling and I love homes. And I loved the experience when I bought a house. It was just that the experience was really cool. And I just got to thinking I should start this. This is going back 20 plus years, right? And as soon as I got just a teeny piece of real estate, I just began to love it. And so at first it became, oh, I want to make more money. Then I realized right away, it's really not about the money. It's about the clients and the connections and really helping people with what they, and of course, because once you start closing enough transactions and your bank accounts start to grow and you're, being smart with your money, et cetera, then you kind of go, it's not just about that anymore, And so we started building a team. We moved over to EXP a year ago. It's been incredible. The worst thing about that is we did it I should have done it 5 years ago.
Everybody says that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have. And it's not just because of all the awesome things like rev share and stocks and all this. And not just that, it's the culture. I think I could have been so much further along just with the culture. In a combination between, of course, the Zoom meetings and stuff like that, but all the face-to-face meetings that we have, at least everyone that are senior partners in my organization, we're always getting together. We're always, cheerleading each other. We're always, pressing in and going deeper. It's just amazing. So anyway, that's kind of how I started. Cool. I'm here now. Absolutely love it. Our team is, we have great culture within our team, and I'm just excited to continue to see how big we can make this thing as long as we're helping people along the way.
That's awesome. So all of us were in sales beforehand, right,
really?
Michelle?
No. Well, kind of, maybe.
Okay. What was your background?
I guess I'm like the Forrest Gump getting into real estate, I suppose.
Run, Forrest.
Yeah. And Brian, by the way, you should be on radio. Your voice is incredible.
Agreed.
Oh, you know what, you guys, I can't take credit for that. That's this.
No, it is your voice.
I'm serious. This mic. If you're going to do a lot of Zoom calls, you got to have a nice mic, decent,
lighting,
speech, everything. Anyway. Okay. So no, before getting into real estate, I have a degree from University of Michigan, and it's funny, I had a friend say to me, you need to get a real job, because I was bartending and substitute teaching and get a real job. So I got a real job, quote unquote, dream life, like what Chris said. I had an apartment, you know, like whatever, I worked when I wanted, like it was, and I got the real job in leasing, zoning, land acquisition, working for Nextel.
Cool.
Do you remember Nextel?
Yep.
Yes, I do.
I had one.
The pager? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I worked there at Nextel, and I was in, like I said, leasing, zoning, land acquisition. So I really hated being in the gray cubicle, and I felt trapped. And the field guys would help put cell phone towers up on farmland and in churches, and they were doing the negotiation, and they were on the road, and they could get their job done and eat lunch whenever they wanted, as long as the job got done. And I thought, this job sounds a lot more fun. At least I'll be out of the mouse maze here and be on the road. I'm going to get my real estate license.
Yeah.
And so I got my real estate license thinking I'd change careers within Nextel. Met my husband in the construction department there. That's where he was at as the engineer. And then 9/11 happened. And
oh man,
the reduction in workforce just started happening.
Yep.
And yes, I owned my own condo at that point. And my husband, I got laid off before my husband, and I just thought, I'll just get my real estate license. I'll go sell real estate full time. Did not consult with anyone in the real estate industry, not even my own realtor who helped me buy my first condo.
Right.
Nothing. And I started showing up every day, 40 hours with a business suit on. And my broker took pity on me and reached out to Dave Abdullah, who was at one point awarded Century 21 #1 worldwide, and said, can you please help this pathetic little girl showing up every day in a business suit? And can you teach her something? And he became my mentor. And about, I would say, I gave myself, this is the funniest story. I gave myself 6 months to get started in real estate and said I would put $5,000 in debt on my credit card, because unemployment checks don't even cover your mortgage, just for the record. They don't. And I give myself 6 months to get started in $5,000 in debt. And I want to give myself a $5,000 raise for the year. Well, I did that. I gave myself a $5,000 raise for the year, but I didn't know you had to pay taxes as a self-employed person. So at about, 8 months in, 6 months in, I was like, okay, this has gone on longer than I said it would, but I see the future and I see the light, and it's probably not a train going to hit me. So I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And I just kept going. And my husband and I, at that time, we started dating. We probably broke up 4 times because I don't need your help. And, and now we're married, and it's been 20 years. So there we are.
That's an awesome story. That I kind of had the same sort of thing when I still have a hard time wrapping my head around not having to go to a cubicle from 9 to 5, because I did it for so many years. And my first year in real estate, I was at Keller Williams, and I showed up for the first probably 3 months every day, 9 a.m., dressed completely professional.
Yep.
And then I started realizing I didn't have to do that. And it's still one of those weird feelings. I think that all of us that are so conditioned to working in an office, even if I have a freer day, I can't go and fold laundry at 11 a.m. and watch a show. I can't do that. I have to do something productive. So that's pretty funny. That's a very, very cool story. So I think when I was trying to think of questions that a brand new agent would want to actually know the answer to when I was writing these questions. So my next question for everyone is, I know all of us did a lot of crazy things when we first started real estate. What was your first true lucrative lead generation thing that you did? So I'll start with this story where this is not the most lucrative one, but one of the ridiculous things that I did was I dressed up like Superwoman, because the show was really big and people were kind of like, oh, you kind of look like her. And I was getting my headshots and I had a Supergirl costume anyways. So I put on this costume during my headshots, and I got with the fan blowing, and I got a professional headshot that is completely ridiculous. And I made a flyer that said, hire a super agent. And I farmed my entire neighborhood, which is probably 150 houses. And it was incredibly embarrassing looking back that I actually did this. And I still, every Halloween, I'll wear this costume because the neighborhood now knows me for that. So I trick or treat with my kids and I wear the costume around the neighborhood. But because I did that, I have represented, I'd say 75% of the listings that have gone up in my neighborhood, just because they know who I am. They know that I'll hustle for it. But that's just a story I'm sharing that I'm still embarrassed about today. My most lucrative thing I did when I first started, which I think was, looking back, I was surprised I actually did this, but I cold called and door knocked every for sale by owner I possibly could. I would make a list of for sale by owners that I got free off Zillow. And I would call every one of them. I would make an appointment to meet with them, or I would just go and drive around and door knock them. And then I would follow up with them every single Friday to make sure that they knew I was still interested. And then also to let them know kind of subconsciously, hey, your house is still on the market. By the way, you're not under contract yet. So how about a shot? And I learned that it usually only took about 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and they would eventually list with me. So that is really what I ended up doing 40 sales my first year. And it was all from for sale by owners and following up with them, because I moved here 2 months before getting my license from Boston to Louisiana. So I didn't know a single person. So I think that helped with being fearless of cold calling, because I wasn't scared I was going to call somebody who I knew and they would be like, what are you doing? So I know, Chris, your situation is a little different because you're doing investments. But when you first got started with flips and everything, how did you kind of get going with it?
Yeah, and the marketing strategies are very similar. The only conversation difference is I'm just saying, hey, can I buy your house? Which I'm not doing that now. I'm just having that open conversation. How can I help you? Maybe that's I'll buy your house. Maybe it's we'll list it or something else. Door knocking.
Yeah.
And now, depending on where you're at, it could be a little weird now with COVID, but most areas are kind of moving past that, especially in Texas. But door knocking, which, I mean, I'm 21 years old, knocking on people's houses, and I'm not fashionable. So I have a picture. I probably wore cargo shorts, tennis shoes with high socks, and a polo Abercrombie shirt. I have a picture of me in front of the house like that. I don't know if that's what I wore when I actually talked to the guy, but ultimately, like, if a 21-year-old very unfashionably dressed can convince someone to sell them their house, like a more professional agent can probably have a better conversation and better luck. But yeah, the first several deals, first 4 deals, we did that year as a college kid. I did that way. And then after that, when I got married, the very first deal I did in Houston, which is our second highest grossing deal ever, was also from door knocking.
So how much was it?
$100,000 gross.
Really?
And I had my license by the time it came to sell it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So Brian, what was your first lucrative form of lead generation?
I'm going to say Zillow. I hate to say it, right? Because everyone's like, Zillow. We've been great. We've been partners with Zillow for a long time. We started with them, I'm going to say 10 years ago now. And everything that we've done has been, we've always had at least a 2x return. So some years it's been like 5, 6, 7, 8x return. Not even kidding, like that much.
Nice.
And then, but just building on that. So I'd like to tell if there's any new agents listening. I'd like to tell you where I really blew it. Zillow was such a good machine for us. We were spending about $10,000 to, up to 11,800. I think our highest spend per month was 11,800 bucks. And because we were always, buying a little bit more impressions over under this zip code, picking up a few more leads over here in this region, that kind of stuff. We're always kind of working with our growth advisor on how to just sort of keep that monthly going and working for us. And so we always had enough leads coming in that we were always kind of turning and burning some deals, helping people, giving them a good experience, getting 5-star Zillow reviews, building that Zillow machine. And what it did, oh, and by the way, for that 11,000, we were always making it every month. We were closing like between 30 and 50,000 a month. That's what that's what we were doing just on that spend. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, and we close about 100 to 120 deals a year. So we're not like, but we do quite a bit. So what happened is we got kind of lazy. We got sort of like, hey, we got deals coming in. They're coming in. We're doing well. The magic wasn't in the follow-up anymore. The magic was in just answering the phone and saying, yes, I can go show you that property. Let's do this. And so it made me, I'm just going to be very honest. Please don't be me. I didn't put anything into a CRM. Mm-hmm. I didn't organize. I had hundreds and hundreds of past clients. And after about 10 years realized, oh, I got to get a CRM. Tom Ferry tells me I need a CRM. Uh-huh. And yeah. So we were Tom Ferry. We coach with Tom Ferry, still do. And we was talking about, the magics and the follow-up and all this stuff. And I'm looking over at my wife. She's like, well, let's just start. Let's go through the MLS and let's figure out who we sold houses to. And we had like reinvent this whole thing. Yep. You guys, can you imagine where our business would be today if we leveraged every one of those sales? Yep. We were just grabbing low-hanging fruit, just savoring it and enjoying it, doing our thing. We weren't farming. We weren't casting our seeds. We weren't doing any of the stuff that you need to do to build a really, substantial market share. So Zillow for sure was the biggest thing. But we didn't leverage it correctly. Now we are such good partners with them that we did win a Zillow Flex account. So we have insane amounts of leads right now, and I need to hire and I need to expand our team for sure. Because I don't know if you guys know what's going on with Zillow as far as the leads go, but it's all about Zillow Flex now. So it's very hard. It's almost impossible to get a Flex account. They reached out to us and interviewed us. At first they said no, and then we're like, okay, no big deal. And then they came back about 6 months later and said, we think your team, even though it's small, we think we're reinventing how we do things too. We're letting smaller teams on. So now we're with Zillow Flex. So still a big part, of our business. Yep.
And truth be told, if I needed to name a second most lucrative, it was Zillow. When I first started year 1, 2, and 3, Zillow was, I always had, it's one of those things where you have to be able to answer the phone right away. If you want to have a relationship with them, you're showing them a house that day. So it kind of breaks every rule. We want to make sure they're pre-qualified. You want to make sure you're not meeting a psychopath in a vacant house. And all that goes out the window and you're just setting the appointment. And it's like either the same day or the next day, or they're not calling you back ever again.
That's right.
And I felt as though I would always get that unicorn. So I would have all these people that were terrible, terrible. And every single one of my biggest commissions I've ever gotten, like a $20,000 or $30,000 commission, was always a Zillow lead.
Yeah.
So and psychologically, I was like, it just paid for itself. I'm good. I can keep going with Zillow. So it wasn't until I'd say a year and a half ago when I started working mostly off referrals that I took my Zillow down. I am too scared to get rid of it. So I have it at $100 because I'm scared to lose my reviews, which they say I won't, but it's what it is. So I guess I kind of donate $100 to them to thank them every month. So Michelle, what about you?
This is such an interesting conversation. I almost want Brian to repeat what he said to my group of people. Because I started 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. There was no Zillow. I had the newspaper that came out on Wednesday and a highlighter, no computer, and my pager and a desk phone. And the newspaper would come out on Wednesday. I would look at the for sale by owners. I would highlight them. Cool. I would call them with my desk phone.
And remember, the MLS was a big, thick book. The MLS was a book. It wasn't on.
We didn't have the book. We had them online, but every morning, we just got email. We just got email for real estate. And every morning when I started, we would get a fax into our office because we had like 3 or 4 offices locally. And the fax would come in with a hot sheet of what new properties went back on market because the faxing was faster than the MLS would update. Yeah. And we only had one front photo on the listings, and the office would page you if somebody, would page you if somebody called in for you, and you'd keep a lot of quarters in your wallet and use payphones to call the office if you got a page. So I am traditionally trained. I'm actually taking like 15 agents to go to the Mike Ferry event in 2 weeks. Cool. And I'm still with Mike Ferry. So when my broker felt sorry for me when I was showing up every day at the office, I was told first thing, which is why I want Brian to repeat what he said to my group of people, that you start with your database. And I teach that now to everyone that joins me here at EXP. I don't care what you got to do, make something CSV, names, phone numbers, email addresses. Yep. So you can email, mail, call, text, video. I don't care. Put your face in front of their face. You know, that is one of the most important things that you can do.
Huge.
And so someone pulled up in my driveway. So, so one of the, I'll close my door. So one of the,
I thought that was Chris.
Most important, one of the most important things that I've done, and I've always done, is for the first 17 years of my career, I spent on the phone 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, at my stand-up desk, and I prospected for hours every single day. Calling expired listings is how I started, and for sale by owners. If you want to know what was my most lucrative thing when I very first started, this is the dumbest story in the whole world, but I told you I was the Forrest Gump getting into real estate. Like, I didn't consult anyone before I got into real estate. I just showed up.
Yeah.
Was that my first listing was a for sale by owner, and this is in 2001. So it was an estate sale, and I think I just knocked down their door. I saw that they were there, and I knocked on the door, and I walked up to the house and basically said, why don't you put me to work? I didn't even have a listing presentation. Why don't you put me to work? And I'll put my commission on top of your asking price, and we'll get it sold. And I thought I was a genius because I sold it in 3 days, and they thought I was a genius too.
That's
and
awesome.
So I continued to do that again and found myself with a lot of listing inventory that wasn't selling. And
Thanks for a little high.
Then I learned the value of the price reduction script, and what to say and how to handle price reductions. So you know, fortunately, some things did sell, some didn't, and I was able to eat. But you know, I went back to that. So when Zillow came out or became popular, I really didn't see the value in it. I didn't understand why people would pay for leads. I always thought leads are free and in surplus. I have this huge database. I have all these for sale by owners, and I know what to say to an expired listing. Like, I have plenty of opportunity because I knew what to say. So I didn't need to buy into anything. And
so, one question I have, just as you're talking, because when I started, you know, 5 years ago, calling for sale by owners and expireds, what I did was I went on YouTube and I watched all these different videos of people actually doing it live. And I picked people I liked. I threw away whatever the person I didn't like. And I tried to find somebody's personality that kind of matched mine. And I made a script that I could kind of follow that was more me. How, since you didn't have YouTube, and that's kind of my go-to for like having learned, how did you figure out what to say to for sale by owners and expireds when you called them?
It's the Mike Ferry script book. It's like, that's my prospecting desk behind me.
Yeah.
It's still my go-to jam. It's still, I mean, I can recite that thing, you know, hi, I'm calling about the home for sale. Is this the owner? You know, I mean, like, I know. And
that's awesome.
It was embedded because I was classically trained. So that's what I did. And I just, I didn't know that there was any other way. So when Zillow started to come out, I just thought, I better get some exposure. I better be known. This is just to be on the board, so to speak. If this is the way to market, I better get my name on the board. So I literally just upped my ad spend to, I think, like $6,000 a month just now. And so I was like literally held at like $2,500 a month for like a lot of years.
Yeah.
But over 50% of my deals are from Sphere.
Yeah. That's awesome.
The Zillow stuff now really is just starting to help me get these new agents that don't have a database in a Sphere, because the game has dramatically changed. Like Jenny, you saying being in the business 5 years ago, you can't get phone numbers. I could go into but you don't know what this is. It's a Bressers. I don't know if you guys know what that is. I could go and I could pull up, you know, Kolb Street, and I could call everybody up on Kolb Street and hit all their phone numbers and call around my listing. Like, I had all their phone numbers. It's like the phone book for the streets. And so I could do just listed, just sold. I could do all of that. And so now it's so much different with not having access to landlines and people really scrubbing things down. The reason that I'm a payer of Zillow is so that I can give the agents that join my team those opportunities to help build up their own sphere and their own database. So it's just
yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So my last, because I think we only have about 10 minutes left. We have to wrap up by 11:45 or we get booted off of a Zoom. So my last question that I thought was kind of interesting is, what is one mistake you've made that you'll never do again? So either with a transaction or just your business. For a transaction wise, for me personally, I once allowed an early occupancy for my buyer. Very, very, very common here in Louisiana. People ask if they can move in a day or two earlier because they can't quite figure out the timing of where to go from back to backs when you're selling and buying a house. Everybody was on board, and my buyer moved into the house a day before closing from out of state. And we got to the closing table and the other agent was actually on vacation. So the seller has this look on his face, and I asked him, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "I just now looked at the closing disclosure and I can't sell this house. I owe $50,000 on it." And so he would have had a $50,000 payoff. The craziest thing though, is he had already moved to Texas. So he said they can stay in the house and I'm going to cash out a 401k and get this figured out. Long story short, it has been now 13 months. We are in the middle of a short sale process still, and my clients are still living in that house without owning it and without renting it, because you cannot rent a house that is going to short sale or foreclosure. So I have these clients that are legally somehow squatting in a house that we are still trying to get closed. 13 months later, I still have to call these clients every Friday to give them an update on the wildest thing I've ever seen in my life. So I'll never do that again. So Brian, what is one thing you've learned that like a piece of advice or something that went wrong that you learned the hard way?
Michelle, did you want to go ahead and record this? Because I'm going to say it again. You can let your whole team know.
I'm gonna hit you up after this. Yes.
Yeah, I'll do a Zoom call with your entire team. I have no problem with doing that.
That's awesome.
And I mean it. You can hit me up after. So listen, guys, you have to have a CRM. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a tool in place, if you don't have a tech-enabled system of reaching out and touching your sphere, your past clients, your brand new super cold leads that come in from Facebook that need 2 years worth of nurturing, you're not going to ever get to that level. You're not going to get, you may never even be on one of these panels, because I don't know how you can possibly hit icon if you're not putting those practices in place. So don't be a Brian Hour. Do it early. I've been doing it now for long enough to where I've maybe caught up, but
I think be a reformed Brian Hour.
Be a reformed Brian Hour. Be a reformed Brian Hour. Because there's nothing more satisfying than having those systems in place. And by the way, when you have really good systems in place, you don't even really know what's going on until somebody raises their hand. So all of a sudden you're driving or you're, on vacation or wherever you are, right? And you get a text that says something like, "Hey, that sounds great. I would love to see that property." And so you're, "Oh, that's a lead." So you know that somebody's responding to your I'll just say your drip campaign. Right?
What do you use? Do you use KV Core or do you use a different system?
It was KV Core. So I switched everything over to KV Core because I was using something that was already very similar to it. So the learning curve was like nothing. Only KV Core is way better because we're using video. Now listen, KV Core is free, but I tell everybody that I have the privilege of recruiting or bringing on or attracting into our group. It's not free. You got to pay $29 a month for video, because I think if you're not paying that for that add-on, then you're not really going to get the marketing muscle out of your CRM. Your CRM has to include drip campaigns that have video. And it's just a quick, some of them can be evergreen, like, "Hey, thanks so much for clicking on, our Facebook property, whatever. I'm really looking forward to giving some information about it. Check your email I just sent, blah, blah, blah." It's just a quick face thing. Those can be evergreen. But the ones that really work are when you're going through your database and you're just touching maybe a handful of past clients per day, and you send out an individual email that says, hey, Lisa, how are you? And you're using her name, and she can see that it's raining out the window because it's raining at her house too. You know, she knows it's live, you know, or recorded minutes ago.
Yep.
And you're just saying, hey, I just want to let you know there's, I have 2 or 3 listings coming up in your neighborhood. We're going to be doing an open house. Be nice to see you. Come say hi or something. I'm just making this up, right?
Yeah,
You're just touching, you're just being top of mind, top of mind, top of mind. That's all you want to do. Video is way, way, way powerful compared to a text and an email and other things like that.
That's great advice. Thanks. Chris, what about you? Have you learned, now that you are a realtor, any piece of advice or anything that kind of went south that you learned from?
Yeah, this is actually something Brian can feel a little bit. So I had blinders on for the longest time, having a license, but only focusing on investments. Then in 2018, I mean, leads are getting more expensive. Like for an investment deal, I mean, we'd pay $3,000 or so a deal because the margin was there. But competition, that gets more expensive. Y'all know that game.
So your acquisition cost was $1,000 or
no, about $3,000. But that scaled quickly, much higher than that.
Wow.
But that's okay if you're going to make 10, 20, 50 on it. So. But in any case, 2018, I had our ISA. I said, hey, every deal that we bid on and we did not get, what happened to it? 130 something of them sold retail.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what a closing ratio is for traditional realtors, but I know a market price. And let's say I was just horrible and I closed only 30% of them. Like, surely I can get 30% of them. What would that be? And that would have been 200 grand in gross commissions.
Yeah.
That I just flushed down the toilet because I never even considered that opportunity. I was like, okay, I'm in their living room. And they're literally saying, hey, I want to sell my house. I just don't want what you're offering.
Right.
And I never gave them another choice. I'm like, why don't I just walk out of the house with a contract, list it or buy it? So that's when our strategy changed. Now for the traditional agent, they can flip that. And so they may have folks that they don't want to list it. I literally, friends, very trusted people we've had were like, hey, look, I can get you so much more. I can get you so much more. Like, let me list it. Because I'll disclose even extra if I know you or if I go to church with you. I'm like, I just don't. I'd rather go with Open Door. I'd rather go with Zillow. I just that guaranteed. Or I'd rather just sell to you. So if agents can understand that side, it'll help them get more business, even if it's off market. So understanding both sides, there's a lot of power there, and it becomes easier to do that, using the arbitrage methods of all the Open Doors and the 50 other companies that come out doing the same thing over time.
Yeah,
even
that's
Express
awesome.
Offers is now.
Yeah.
Huh?
Express Offers.
Express Offers. I'll do it all. Like, so if we get one, like, look, I'll just give you a full smorgasbord of opportunities, which includes the traditional listing. And then we'll just kind of go down the paths of which one makes the most sense to meet your goal and your timeline and your net profit. And we'll see what works the best and go from there.
One-stop shop. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. And Michelle, we can finish up with you. So what is one thing that you learned or that you want to share? I know that you were talking a little bit about when you did for sale by owners with the price reduction or pricing it a little too high. Was that it? Or is there anything else that you could share with us?
Oh, girl, I've been doing this 20 years. There's something epic that happens all the time. There's always lessons. It never changes. It doesn't stop. But I will say, and I'll end on time so we don't get cut out on Zoom. I will just say, this is what I preach and this is what I believe is that lessons in real estate are expensive.
Yeah.
Every lesson is
mentally and financially.
It's going to end up costing money. It's going to end up costing somebody money somewhere.
Yeah.
So, just always err on the side of the most conservative answer in that respect. But I think that's one of the hardest lessons for when you were saying at the beginning of this call for newer agents coming in, what lessons can be learned.
Yeah.
be prepared that lessons come with dollar signs attached to them in real estate. And there's usually not any amount of money that a problem can't fix. Like usually, I mean, yours happens to be 50 grand, but there's usually.
Yeah. It's down to 14,000 now, miraculously.
I think the listing agent on that one could have done a better job figuring that out before it got
payoff. Yeah.
Definitely.
That was ball drop for sure. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I think that's one of the things that I love about this business, is that it's ever changing. No two transactions are ever like. Everyone, you get to pop in and out of people's stories.
Yep.
And be a part of their lives for this, month or two of time.
Yeah.
And then you get to circle back to it. So with every single one comes its unique challenge. So, I mean, the list is long of lessons learned. So.
Right. That is awesome. Well, Michelle, Chris, Brian, thank you guys so much for your time. It was a fun conversation. I hope we all keep in touch. And if you guys ever need anything in Louisiana, reach out and I'll do the same with y'all.
Will do.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Bye.